let's talk about abs. I love using loaded thoracic rotation for both of those working on their core and pelvic floor issues. It's also particularly important to help with transfer of weight from one side of our body to the other that can help with what's happening in our hips and lower body. And it's particularly important for those looking to return to running and sports. As Sarah mentioned in the mini-series, half-kneeling rotations are a great exercise to work on it. You get that great cross connection in the front, teaching those abs how to work together as a team. You're working on engaging those abs and closing off the more lengthened position in the front while still maintaining nice length to minimize pressure down. You're improving back body tightness by getting those abs to connect and getting that opening into your back. We're also working our abs in both a concentric and eccentric range. So all in all, it's a pretty great exercise. That being said, it can be a move that often needs to be worked on in layers. Someone that has limited thoracic mobility or back tightness is going to have a hard time being able to drive that rotation from their abs. That's where prepping with some of the breathing drills to improve ribcage mobility and working on back body expansion first can be really helpful. That all being said, let's go ahead and dive into breaking down some of the parts of half-kneeling rotations to help you get more out of it. Another limiting factor for tolerating half-kneeling is what's going on in the hips. Yes, ab work can help your hip work, but sometimes people need more hip work to help what's happening in their abs. A few easy hacks to address this in half-kneeling rotations are warming up with some well-intentioned split squats to help improve the tolerance to the depth of that split squat, putting a yoga block underneath the inside of that back down knee to help level out the hips and take you out of the full depth of that lunge. We can also, along those same lines, think about maybe dragging the front heel back to engage that hamstring to help pull your hip down. Or maybe we look at turning towards the hip and sitting back into it to help that hip sit down and bring more length in the backside of that hip and pelvis. Either way, if you're in this half-kneeling position and your hips are kind of lopsided here, or you feel a lot of tension in the front of your downside leg, this might mean that we need to go to explore what is going on in the hips and work the obliques in a different way before returning to the half-kneeling rotations. Now let's talk about some differences in intentions for the half-kneeling rotation to change what you're feeling in the exercise. As Sarah mentioned in the mini course, thoracic rotation is using one side external obliques with the opposite side internal obliques contracting to create that rotation. At the same time, the opposite pair of external obliques and internal obliques need to then lengthen to make you be able to turn. Ideally, all of that is working together to make that rotation happen. That being said, some people might need a little bit more internal obliques or lower abs, such as someone with more of a narrow ISA, or lower diastasis, or pelvic floor complaints. Other people might need a little bit more external obliques and closing of those ribs, such as someone with a wider ISA or an upper diastasis. Now, that being said, as you go to work more of those external obliques and closing the ribs, we want to make sure that we're not putting pressure down onto the pelvic floor and lower abs. If you're finding that's the case, then it might be that they need more ribcage mobility work to help make those abs not have to work so hard to create that rotation. We might need to work on some more back body expansion so there's not so much resistance to rotate into. We also might need to address what is happening in the hips and pelvis and pelvic floor to help support that increased pressure down and make sure that we have that strength to match it and get that balanced ab engagement. Due to fascial connections between our shoulder blades and our abs, we can use what's happening in our shoulders to help what is happening in our abs. The serratus invests into the external obliques. So if we need more external obliques, we can think about pushing more with that inside arm and using that serratus to help close those ribs in and create that turn. We want to make sure as we go to do that push that we don't take our rib cage forward, but really thinking about that rib cage staying stacked over our hips and then feeling that shoulder blade slide around the rib cage and kind of squeezing those ribs back. Now, if you need more internal obliques, we can kind of use that same concept, but for more of an opening action. So instead of pushing, I can now pull with my outside arm, feel that shoulder blade slide around and back, and feel how that pulls my ribs around to open me up and turn me towards the right. There too, we also want to make sure that we don't flare our ribs, but think more that this turn and a press back to help keep that connection in our abs and create some great length in our backs. Now, that being said, if this feels challenging, it might be that exploring what's happening in the shoulders can help what is happening in your abs. You also don't have to do this single armed. You can still keep it with two hands on it, but just kind of have the relaxed hand kind of being more of a dummy hand. So I'm driving the action with my right outside arm, but that left hand's still there to support it a little bit to make it not quite so challenging. Sometimes we'll have the tendency to do more of a side bending action instead of that rotation. This can be due to imbalances between left and right abs, using the same side obliques instead of that cross connection, or overusing QLs instead of your abs. For this, you might explore pulling at different angles instead of at that straight horizontal plane. The high to low can help achieve different actions depending on the cueing. If you emphasize the pull of the inside hand, you'll continue to get more of that side bend towards the inside abs and more external obliques on that side, creating length in the outside abs. This can be great if they have the tendency to side bend towards the outside abs as they go to rotate instead of get that cross connection. Now, if they tend to side bend towards the inside abs, you're going to pull and reach down towards the outside arm to help create that side bend towards the right here in this instance and lengthen those inside abs. So basically, whatever direction they tend to go for their side bend, you're trying to use the opposite intentions to create more of that balanced movement in rotation. Pulling low to high can help create more connection with the inside external obliques and get more scapular upward rotation in both arms that can help with maintaining nice length through that torso. This can be great to help unload the pelvic floor while they're working on closing their ribs. You'll just want to make sure that as they go to rotate and come up, that they're not leaning back, but continuing to stay connected in their abs to get that rotation rather than using their QL. Another thing to consider is sometimes our abs need to spend more time under load to help address imbalances. This can be the case for a one-sided rib flare. So for this, we would want to maintain this rotation here, connecting those left abs in while then doing our pull-off press. We're forcing these left external obliques to stay connected to help pull that left rib in and keep more length in this right side while we're holding here instead of rotating in and out of it. You can also maintain that rotation while you slowly take your arms up and down. This is going to change the perturbation to your abs and kind of freshen things up a little bit. It can also work on unsticking my scapula from my rib cage, which can help with posture and pressure management strategies. The last thing we want to think about is paying attention to how we're rotating back out. We've talked a lot about how you're going to rotate into it, but watching how you're rotating out is equally as important. We want to make sure that as you go to rotate out, you're maintaining this tension while allowing you to rotate in the other direction. This is going to help you have great control in those obliques to help your ribs not flare, make sure your rib cage doesn't shift or side bend. Working on that eccentric control can help improve thoracic rotation towards that side, which is then going to help what is happening when we go to load abs on the opposite side. I hope you enjoyed this bonus exploration with me. As you can tell, we are very passionate about the human body and movement. We're all about working smarter and not harder to give the body what it needs at that point in time. What we covered in this mini-series is just a tip of the iceberg of what is covered in our PCES course. In it, we address what is happening in the core and pelvic floor, the effects of the kinetic chain, and considerations for working with pregnant and postpartum population. This knowledge helps you further support the individual needs of the people that you're working with to reach their goals sooner. So, if you're a fitness professional looking to take your knowledge of the human body to the next level, this is the course for you. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you'll join us in the PCES course.